Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, we are going to be breaking down a lot of Game 6s that are coming up, both in the NBA and in the NHL. We'll also go over the Game 5 victories that took place last night with the Mavericks handling the Clippers very, very easily in the Clippers' home arena. We'll talk about that game in the first segment, along with the rest of the NBA action coming up tonight. Game 6 between the Bucks and Pacers, and Game 6 between the Knicks and 76ers. So we'll break all of that down in the first segment. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about football. There's been a lot of news coming out of Pittsburgh today. Some interesting reports. Not sure how much you guys have heard about all of that. We'll break down every single big piece of news coming out of Pittsburgh in the second segment. In the third segment, we're going to do our 1 month power rankings for the MLB. So stick around for that. And in our fourth and final segment, we are going to be taking a look at the NHL, their Game 6s. There are 3 series yet to be decided. All of them are 3-2 in Game 6. There's 1 game tonight, but we're going to be breaking down all 3 Game 6s, see if the series is going to end. But anyway, before we get into the NBA, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. All you need to do is go to the link that's currently on screen. That is gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate all of you for taking time out of your day and watching. And we appreciate all of you for leaving your comments and interacting with us. As always, if you do have anything to say, leave a donation, leave a comment. I always have my eyes on both of those places. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show today talking a little bit about the NBA. The Mavs take a crucial Game 5, and I know we talked about this stat yesterday when we were talking about the Magic and the Cavs game. I was off by 10%, so I apologize for that. Instead of 70%, the winner of Game 5s, when the series are tied at 2, the winner of that game wins the series 80% of the time. 81.7 if you'd like to be exact. They win that series 80% of the time. So Game 5 in a tied series is crucial, and you look at it and it makes sense. You know, it's much easier to win 1 out of 2 than it is to win 2 out of 2, especially in a playoff series when it's tightly contested. So it makes sense, but 80% is still a higher number than I thought it would be. So let's break down that game. And in the first half, there were really 2 different games. It was when the Clippers could make shots and when the Clippers couldn't make shots. This game was over about halfway through the third quarter. The Clippers went on a run there where they didn't score a field goal for like 10 minutes in that game. In between the late end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter, they went on a stretch of over 5 minutes where they did not score a single basket. Now, they had some points on free throws, but Luka and Kyrie were getting anything they wanted on the other end. Luka had a very efficient game from the field. He was incredible. Watching him play, he was making all those tough shots that you expect a prime Luka Doncic to make. Very, very, very good at tough shot making and clutch shot making. It got to a point where, with more than 5 minutes left in a crucial Game 5, like I said, the winner of this game wins 80% of series when it's in this situation. The Mavericks pulled their starters with 5 minutes left to go in this game, and that just goes more to show the utter domination that the Mavericks had, especially in the second half of that game. You know, what with their what with their huge lead, that field goal drought that the Clippers went through it's not something that's sustainable. And really, outside of the whole team, you can kind of take a look at the stars of the Clippers. They had really bad games. In this huge game 4 victory to even up the series, the two Clippers stars that are healthy, James Harden and Paul George, they combined for 66 points on relatively efficient shooting. You go to today's game, or last night's game, they combined for 22 points on 6 of 25 shooting from the field. It's not going to win you games. Really, what this series comes down to is if the stars can cancel it out, the bench players are going to have to go at it. And everything, and I do mean everything, was going the Mavericks' way. It wasn't very close. The Mavericks just kind of beat them. And it's tough to do when your stars aren't having a good night. James Harden, 2 for 12 from the field. That's a liability out there. 4 turnovers, it's only 7 points. Paul George hit a bunch of tough threes in the fourth quarter to kind of salvage his game a little bit. But, aside from those 2 tough threes that he hit, he was, 9 points. It wasn't a very good game from either of them. They both, he did have a triple-double. It was maybe the worst playoff triple-double that I've ever seen. Or no, it wasn't a triple-double, excuse me. I'm sorry. He had a double-double, but it wasn't a very good performance from the Clippers or really anyone really anyone on that team. Terrence Mann, who was providing a lot of spark as kind of that secondary scorer for the Clippers, he got hurt on a non-contact injury towards the end of the game there, and that definitely sucks for them. He's a high energy player. Terrence Mann is. He's someone that can come in. He's been starting, but he can come in off the bench and really just get the team going. He's been really, really good for them. So hopefully he's okay. But there are bigger things to worry about if you're the Clippers. The Clippers need, and I say need, they need them. They need their stars, James Harden, Paul George, to have good games. They can't put up stinkers like that, and especially both of them can't, because they need them to be able to duel with Luka and Kyrie. And if they're unable to duel with Kyrie and Luka, then you're going to see these 30-point blowout games that we've been seeing out of them. This is the way that the Mavericks play, and the Clippers kind of play a very similar style. Games where the Mavericks have won, outside from a tight game 2, where Luka just beat them straight up. That game 3, you had Kawhi and Paul George combined for 16 points. Kawhi Leonard is not going to play in the rest of this, but James Harden had a good game, but he can't do it alone. He's not that guy anymore. Russell Westbrook is a liability on the court at times, and he don't get me wrong, he has his values. Russell Westbrook does. Again, he's another one of those energy guys that can come in and he plays with effort. If there's one thing you can say about Russell Westbrook, it's that he plays with effort. He always plays with effort, and it's a very commendable thing. It's not easy to come into a game when you're down by 30 and give it your all. But Westbrook constantly is the hardest working player on the court with the most hustle. He just has lost a step when it comes to playmaking and drilling. Really just being that MVP player that he was back in his prime. He isn't that anymore, and he kind of needs to fall back to his role. He's starting to do that. He's not complaining that he's not starting anymore. That hasn't really been an issue since he came to the Clippers. He's a good guy to have lead your second. You need to, step into that role, maybe focus more on passing and scoring. And I know he's been doing that really well. But in this last game, he thought his team was struggling, and he was trying to be that guy when he wasn't really getting it done. Really an awful game for it. They just, you have a over 10-minute stretch, or 5 minutes, it's a good look, and you can't You can't have that if you're the Clippers. It's just not sustainable to win games. And they know that. They'll come back, and hopefully, as long as their star players are going to be able to make shots, I think they'll be fine in Game 6. Game 7, maybe, I don't know. Like I said, they need to have their guys play 2 of their best games for the rest of the season. And that's not easy to do. You can't walk in and say, hey, I need you to be your best with some of these older that have struggled off the story at times. Paul George hasn't always been the guy you want to give the ball to in the playoffs. He's had his play struggle. James Harden also has had his playoff struggles. Kawhi Leonard's hurt, and it sucks because he's been very good in playoffs, but you can't have him to rely on in these clutch moments right now. You need to rely on some of your other big-name stars that got you to this place. And they need to make these, they need to put the ball and be there to make the plays. And they weren't there last night, and if they want to advance, they need to put as much effort as possible into their next couple of games. There are also an elimination yesterday. The Heat got eliminated yesterday, and no one was really that surprised. Were the favorite, odds-on favorite into the postseason for good reason. They dominated the Heat, aside from the one game when the Heat decided to make every single three-pointer that they attempted that night. And the Heat were just outmatched, especially without their best player. It didn't really make a difference. We talked about Kristaps Porzingis. His injury, he should be back at midway through that second round, is what I've heard. But the Magic, I'm not too concerned about really giving the Celtics that many fits. Just watching their games, maybe it's cheap between the two, but those teams don't really scream, oh, beat Celtics. Anyway. Lots of Game 6s. We're going to break them down later on in our show between the Knicks and the 76ers tonight, and the Pacers and the Bucks also play Game 6 tonight. We're going to break down all those Game 6s in a future segment, so stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.